Well, well, ladies and gentlemen, happy Valentine's Day. Hugs and kisses from me to you. Presidential message today. Welcome to our 5,648th meeting. Well, in good old tradition, Jody, if you want to join me for a second, we have the privilege of the thought of the day. And that should be then followed by Shada. So get ready for that. And with that, I'm stepping out of the way.
As a teacher at heart and having taught at Sacred Heart schools, it's appropriate that I thought about the message of the day for Valentine's Day. The history of Valentine's Day is a combination of myth, legend, and religion. Actually, there are 3 Valentines that claim to be the origin. In 272 AD, there was a Christian who was imprisoned, and he fell in love with the jailer's daughter and supposedly exchanged notes with her, and he signed them, "Your Valentine." So that's the Christian history of the origin of St. Valentine's Day. For the ancient Romans, at this time of year, it's when the birds started to mate. So it was a combination of Roman holiday and St. Valentine. But I want to share a little local history lesson with you. And no, it's not the 1929 St. Valentine's Day massacre, which is part of our history. This one is a little bit sweeter. On your table is a plate, and on the plates are the conversational hearts. These hearts have been made since 1862, when they were started by the Necco Candy Company. But in 2019, there was a crisis of the hearts because the Necco Company went out of business. But the Brock Company picked up the slack and has continued to make the conversational hearts. It's a challenge to get a message on such a small space. There are over 145 recorded different messages through the years. They've been adapted and changed with each new generation and their new words of affection or love. So, and I invite you to practice the 5th test of the 4-way test of Rotary, and to have fun and to pass the conversational heart plate. Pick 1 or 2 and have a very happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. All right. Thank you for joining me up here. Ada.
All right. Thanks, Timo. Timo just asked me that I speak to the earthquake event that happened in Turkey and Syria. I've actually posted something, so I'm just, excuse me, that I'm just gonna go ahead and read what I posted earlier. So, dear Rotarian friends, many good-hearted people in Turkey and around the world are doing their best, if not more, to help out. Some are cooking, some are setting up tents, some are treating the wounded, both physically and mentally. Some are on site, while some are in the other regions helping in coordinating efforts, large or small. Everyone is trying to contribute in the best way they can. Some show their support through social media, some prefer to do it quietly. They are all heroes. Over 30,000 dead as of today, and the numbers are keep rising. 13 to 14 million people have been impacted directly. So everyone else in the country is so deeply affected. People are sending everything they can. They are donating the food they preserve for themselves for the winter. Kids are donating their saved up allowances. People are opening up their homes and hotels around the country, have opened their doors and host the victims. The efforts are widespread and from the heart, as they need to be in a situation like this. We get many calls and messages from friends in the world, food world, and the other, communities that are around the world asking how they can help. So I would tell you right now that Rotary opened up emergency fund, so all your donations will be welcome there and truly appreciated by the people that are in need desperately. And today, over the weekends, we've been collecting, and over the last week too, I've been collecting a lot of clothes and the emergency items. But the government at this time let us know that the best way to help is via money. So Rotary Emergency Fund is open, and they are collecting everything. So past week, Turkish consulate opened up their office, and everybody donated there. Turkish Airlines shipped everything free from US to Turkey. So efforts are continuing. What I just wanted to just say, thank you for giving me the platform to say a few words, and I truly appreciate the friendship and the support.
Thank you for that update. I know she'll be around after the meeting for those who want to chat with her about this. She's right there. That being said, we're moving on to our speakers. Always, we'll try to get to our friends in Zoom in time. Be mindful of his time. One question per person, please. And Kia, you want to join me here for a few words of introduction, and then it'll be all you, Rick. Give Kia 1 minute to do the introductions, and then it'll be you. Okay.
Hello and good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and visitors, guests, and prospective Rotarians. Let me introduce Rick Harnish. Rick helped found the High Speed Rail Alliance in 1993 with a passion for revitalizing the region he grew up in, lives in, and loves. Excuse me. The Alliance advocates for integrated rail and transport networks connected by 200 plus mile-per-hour high-speed lines. By connecting cities, towns, and airports, the high-speed trains will dramatically expand economic opportunities and slash carbon emissions. A native of the Chicago area, Harnish has been MHSRA's executive director since 2001. His work is informed by his strong commitment to researching and learning from global best practices. He has ridden high-speed trains, often in the context of leading small groups in Belgium, China, England, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, South Korea, Spain, and Turkey. That's a long sentence. And he draws on a global network of colleagues with expertise in trains and transportation policies. Please help me welcome Rick in the warm Rotarian way.
So thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to present to you. We did mention there was the discussion about the issues in Turkey now, and I've been thinking about my trip to Turkey and, really being very worried about what's happening over there. So I wasn't sure if that was going to show up in the list, but it is an issue. On the other hand, their high-speed trains are pretty cool, and we should have those here. And I imagine that they are being used to help get rescue efforts out to where they're needed. And it's one of the roles that railroads can play, is making our societies more robust and more resilient, because they are able to move people quickly, move goods quickly, and at a much higher scale than you can do by highway or air. My primary motivation for doing this, and if we could go to the next slide, is that threefold. One, I'm very concerned about the health of our communities. When people see each other face to face, things happen a lot better. And trains allow you to see each other face to face more frequently because it makes travel safer, it makes it more affordable, and it makes the actual travel itself much more productive. And you have the unique ability in a train to actually talk to each other face to face, as this family is doing on a TGV train somewhere in France. I don't know where it is, but I know it's in France because of the ugly upholstery there on the train. But in the process, even though we'll make travel more frequent and people will see each other more often, because it's so much more efficient than driving, will dramatically reduce our carbon emissions and other economic impacts, like the horrible poisons that come off of your tires onto the road and then get washed into rivers. If we have fewer people driving, that is reduced dramatically. And then the last of these three, but not the last of the long list of benefits, is the infrastructure that it takes to allow everybody to drive quickly from place to place in their own large automobile is incredibly expensive. Not just the road itself, not just the car itself, but then you have to have more pipe in the ground, you have to have more wire in the ground to get your utilities out there. You've got a lot of wasted space right now by our large parking requirements. And high-speed trains can be a catalyst for changing those communities and making them a lot more walkable, which is much more affordable because the community is more compact. And also it leads to better health outcomes. I was listening to a podcast this morning where they were talking about your rate of survival from catching COVID, which is actually better in the city than in the suburbs, because in the city you're walking more, which makes you more healthy and makes you able to deal with issues better. So the trains themselves are a catalyst for many other things, which is the reason that I'm in this, is because I really want us to have healthier communities and healthier cities. Next. So in terms of Chicago, where do we need to think about travel? So there's a trend or a fact in life, which is typically people think about the next biggest city or the next peer city. So our business leadership, our civic leadership thinks about Paris, Beijing, Shanghai, right? So O'Hare Airport becomes very important, and it is incredibly important. It's an asset that's very unique to North America that we need to protect and grow. But actually, our customers in Chicago are coming from that area in green. So three-quarters of our visitors to Chicago are coming from those states there in green. Next, and if you look at those people, most of them are coming by car. So they're used to having subsidized parking, right? They don't like having to pay market rates for parking. If they want to come to downtown Chicago, we charge them market rates. They don't like it. They want subsidized parking. They don't want to sit on the Kennedy. They don't want to sit on the Dan Ryan, right? So they're more likely to come visit us. They're more likely to go to O'Hare. They're more likely to go to a convention at McCormick Place if they don't have to bring their 2-ton, 3-ton briefcase with them and figure out where they're going to store that. Right? So trains can help in this market tremendously if we could figure out how to get those trains to be much more frequent, more dependable, and more affordable. Next. So I want to kind of go back. So this is the why. Now we're going into some basic information just to set the stage for the later discussion. The first is, there's always a question, why, if this was so important, why wouldn't private industry do it, right? For the exact same reason that private industry doesn't build highways. except they do build highways. People make a lot of money building highways. It's just that taxpayer money pays for those highways, right? And there used to be a fallacy that gas taxes paid for the entirety. Gas taxes paid for the highway trust fund, but there were a lot of other ways that we paid for roads. For about 20 years now, we've completely done away with the fiction that the highway trust fund should be funded entirely by gas taxes. We have put multiple billions per year every year into the highway trust fund directly out of general revenue. And that is the network that's eligible for those federal subsidies. So we think about the interstate highway network as the national system. It's much bigger than that. So if we're going to have successful passenger rail, we have to think on this type of scale. We need to think nationally. We need to think in terms of a federal program, because once you cross a state line, it's a federal issue. It's not a state issue. And all of these are going to have to cross state lines. So that's fact number one. This is going to need to be a federal program if we're going to have good trains. Number two, and that goes for freight and passenger. So today there's a lot of freight moving by truck that should be moving on by train, but our federal policies have encouraged the private owners of those tracks to constantly reduce the size of their infrastructure. And so more and more freight is going by truck that should go by train. By dealing with these issues together, we can solve two problems at once. Another issue is in the highway side. The way it works on the highway side is you measure how many cars are traveling on a section. You have a formula that assumes that that section of road is going to grow. And you go out 10 years and you say, in 10 years, our formula says this section of road is going to grow by this much. So we have to expand this highway by this much, right? And that's the way railroad planning has worked, but it won't work. And the reason is we don't have the network that we have on the highway side, that we're just looking at little segments. We have to figure out what that new network is. So for Chicago to Indianapolis, this would be a great place to start high-speed rail. 180 miles is long enough that it really makes a difference if you get in a train versus driving. It's short enough that it's doable as a first segment. The train service is horrible to Indianapolis right now, and I-65 is horrible. So this would be a great place to start. The problem is if you only look at Chicago to Indianapolis, you don't have that much opportunity to take the train. Now, I think if you go one, now there have been other people looking at other segments. And so there's a basic level of traffic that works for each of those segments, but it doesn't quite work. But if you start looking at the network, how people can use the entire system, next one, there start to be more, and go until the red line comes in, there's more opportunities to have people use that service, which means each segment is more valuable, which means we can afford to invest more in each segment, which means then that service actually works better. And so you can justify Chicago to Indianapolis building a completely new railroad where the trains go 220 miles an hour because of the broader network. You can't do it on Chicago to Indianapolis alone. So what we need to have happen is a truly regional plan for buses connected and trains connected to each other and connected to the airports. And somebody's got to lead that. And the person most likely or most valuable to make the champion of that plan is Governor Pritzker, because you can't do any of this without Chicago, and Chicago benefits the most if it happens. So next. The next kind of foundational information is railroads are very versatile. You can take different pieces of different things and put them together in different ways, like Legos. So you get a Lego set and you can build it the way it shows on the box, or you can do other things. You can do that with railroads, but to keep the discussion simplified, we've narrowed it down to 3 types of track. Shared use, which is what Metra is today. Shared use can work. Metra to Aurora works. Metra to Elburn works, because the infrastructure is built such that the trains run on time, right? The freight railroads would say they don't like that rush hour period where they can't run freight trains. We can deal with that, but it does work if you have the right investments. Amtrak doesn't work because we haven't invested in the track. Regional lines are where you take an existing railroad and you improve it to be focused on passenger trains. Maybe it still has freight, maybe it doesn't. The current example of a robust regional line in this country is Washington, New York, Boston, which is where the Acela trains run, but they also share those tracks with electrified commuter trains, diesel commuter trains, and freight trains. And it's an incredibly robust railroad. We should be investing more to make it even better. But that's regional. And then you've got high-speed tracks where you're building completely new tracks in specific places to fix the whole network. And the high-speed trains can go on regional tracks. A lot of stuff can go on shared use. And there's this overlap. So what we need to do in Chicago is figure out where we're going to build those regional lines so that the long-distance trains coming into Chicago can come in without being delayed by freight trains, so that we can run regional trains, which is what Metra is proposing, where it looks a lot more like a CTA train, where it's running throughout the day with, specifically timed stops, et cetera. Next. So we are the High Speed Rail Alliance. So we do believe that we should build new high-speed lines. We don't think, I talked about it needs to be a national network. It's a national network that's mixed with all of those different pieces. But if I were king, would have already built these high-speed lines that are on this map. And if you think it's too big, today you can take a high-speed train in 8.5 hours from Beijing to Hong Kong. That's the distance of Chicago to Miami. And there are 72 trains a day between Beijing and Shanghai. The fastest do it in 4.5 hours. That's Chicago to New York. So imagine if you could go from downtown Chicago to downtown to New York in 4.5 hours. Would you deal with LaGuardia Airlines, LaGuardia Airport, or the Queens Expressway? Probably not. You'd probably take the train. Next. So the FRA has started doing this network vision. It's still at a very basic level. They did a hub around Chicago, a hub around Atlanta, and a hub, not a hub, but a thing around California. We need to get them to do a national plan, but we keep having these regional plans that come up with the site route structure as this one, so we need to just do it. What's different about this one is it goes down to Nashville, and the one from Atlanta goes to Nashville. So you're starting to connect the two in the way we need. So this is a great step in the right direction. Next. But to learn how to do this and have an example of how to do this, both good examples and bad examples, we have to talk about foreign countries. And when I'm in rural areas in the Midwest, California is a foreign country, so we talk about California. So California is 30 years ahead of us. In 1990, they did two very important things. One is the voters approved a massive spending program to build new commuter rail systems, to expand their commuter rail systems, and to expand their Amtrak service. So if we did what they did, we would already have hourly service to Milwaukee. We'd have a train every 2 hours to Detroit. We'd have every train every 2 hours to Cincinnati, maybe even better than that, maybe 16 trains a day. So this is my son and I years ago getting on an Amtrak train in Oceanside. That's an old antique train now. It's still running because our industry isn't built up enough to keep trains being replaced. But that's the first step, is they have an ongoing program every year where they're funding improvements to their existing system. Next is, and this is their existing network. So it's tied very well with their bus system. So you can go anywhere in the state to anywhere in the state with a combination of buses and trains. And the Amtrak buses, you use the same ticket, and the buses are timed for the trains. So this is part of that network issue. And since California is in the news a lot, I want to point out an important piece that's missing here. Right here, Bakersfield to LA. That's the missing piece of their railroad network. That's the piece that makes the whole thing work. but they can't afford to do that until they've built high-speed rail in the Central Valley. So if you ever hear anybody say they shouldn't have started in the Central Valley was the only place to start, because you have to prove the case for that mountain pass. And there's also a line being built from LA to the other side of those mountains. You build those two pieces, now you can justify that piece in the middle. It totally changes the whole picture. And they already have environmental clearance for those tunnels. They can go ask for federal money for those federal tunnels. We in Illinois don't have a plan like that, and that's a problem. We've got to get Governor Pritzker involved in putting that plan together. So the other interesting part is Bakersfield to Merced. So from Bakersfield to Merced, it's basically the Chicago or the Midwest, right? The cities are built the same. They were built at the same time. It's farming communities. It's the same basic layout. Economic geography is our Midwestern downstate Illinois. Next. So today, prior to COVID, they had 8 trains a day and they were about to go to 9. Now they have 6, but they are going to ramp back up to 9. And they've got it timed every 2 hours, so you know when the train is. The train is pretty slow, but it's well used. And so they have this plan for bumping this up. And a lot of making this work is the buses. We need much better buses downstate as well. I think on the next one, you'll see in orange, they're building a new high-speed line to parallel that. They will replace that segment that today takes 3 hours with high-speed rail as the first phase of high-speed rail. They're going to cut it from 3 hours down to 90 minutes. And they're going to go from 9 trains a day in their plan up to 18 trains a day. And then everything that connects to it doubles as well. So you get much better bus service throughout the state because that piece in the middle. They can do this next because what they did finally, very important for us, regional rail. As part of the high-speed rail program, they're electrifying a Metro-like line between San Jose and San Francisco. We could already be working on this up to Kenosha or out to Barrington or to are 2 very easy ones to do. But again, it's because they have a program. It's because they're working on shared use and high-speed lines at the same time. Next. The other thing they did was they created a master plan for the state. And in this case, this isn't track, this is trains. So if it's a red line alone, it's a high-speed train running on high-speed track. If it's a red line with a different line, it's a regional line with a high-speed train running on it. And if there's no red line, then it's a shared use line. But you can see how that piece in the middle ties the whole thing together. The mountain pass, getting over the Tehechapis, getting across the Pacheco Pass, now really brings the whole region together. They become a much stronger economic force than we do because we're still spread out and you have to drive everywhere. Next. And then I'm probably running long. So I just want to point out that they did growth charts. And if you just keep doing everything individual, that's in the middle, a lot of growth. If you actually do the integrated plan and invest a little bit more, you've now started to really boost transit across the entire state. And those, you can't see them, I don't think, the way the screen is laid out. But up at the top, those are rural counties that don't have trains and will never have trains, but they have much better bus service because of high-speed rail. Next. So what should we do in the Chicago region to prepare for this? Number one, tomorrow, there's going to be a presentation at the Metro Board about shifting to regional rail. We need to get Springfield to fund those plans and get them happening faster than they are moving now. That's step number one. Step number two, we need to figure out what our existing assets are and how we can use them and how we can phase things in. So in green, there are some lines that could be easily converted to run high frequency passenger trains, both long distance outside the city and regional trains for Metro, with very modest investment. So these are assets we need to really think about. And imagine a train every 15 minutes from here to Wilmette, and then every half hour up to Kenosha, and then every hour up to Milwaukee, right? How much that changes all of those communities on the lakefront. We also have multiple train stations that we can use to expand service quickly. The challenge is we need to connect these lines together. And we have a proposal called Crossrail, which takes an existing freight line that has some passenger trains on it, goes to the CN, and at a rate that the CN is happy with, buys that line and turns it into an electrified passenger line and allows you to go from the Lakefront line, from the Rock Island line, through Union Station, out to O'Hare. And that's the purple line. We call that Crossrail. So it's possible to phase this, all of this stuff in, but we have to have a master plan to do it. We don't have that plan. So CMAP has to be involved. The Metra has to be involved. IDOT has to have a much bigger department than they have today. Next. There's all different kinds of combinations of trains you can build or do if you want to make this happen, or if this happens. So if we have Crossrail, all of a sudden there's all kinds of connections that you wouldn't have thought of. South Bend to O'Hare, Milwaukee to Champaign, all kinds of stuff. One that I find very interesting is a regional train that runs every 15 minutes from Barrington and Arlington Heights to the airport, to Fulton Market, to O'Hare, to Hyde Park, to the south side, right? How that would change the economic geography of the Chicago region is hard to describe. And at each of those points, you can have connections to the other lines. It would be huge. It's something we have to figure out how to do. The stage is set, but the state of Illinois has got to step up and start getting engaged in making this happen. That's Governor Pritzker. He's got to take this on. And I don't know whether I should put it on there. I don't know what your views are on this thing, but there's a big entity that wants to do a big real estate development in Arlington Heights. Maybe if they did that big real estate development, it would be good to connect that to O'Hare, right? And certainly there's a lot of people who fly out of Barrington and they could leave their cars at home when they fly. They don't have to pay the high parking rates. So next. So our website is highspeedrail.us. There's a petition you can sign that puts you on the our mailing list. Soon, next couple of days, we'll be having an action alert on what you can do to persuade Governor Pritzker to take the next step. And highspeedrail.us is the place to go learn more about that. And we'll be updating it over time. So the best way to keep in touch is to sign that petition and be on our newsletter list. So thank you very much again for having me. And I'd be happy to take any questions if I didn't use it all up.
Thank you, Rick. 1 second. We'll start with the ladies in the back here. Hold on.
So I heard my name is Lynn Ostfeld, new member. I heard the other day that Governor Pritzker will not put 1 penny into the development in Arlington Heights. I don't know what his relationship is with trains, but where is he with trains? Why is he not doing something? Because so many people talk about them.
Well, I will say that it is my belief, this is not a fact, but through inference of different things, it is my belief that Governor Pritzker made sure there was money to do rail development in the last Illinois capital bill. And I think that he actually stepped in and made sure that happened. Again, that's my opinion. I don't know. So I think that Governor Pritzker is very in favor of doing this. We do know that the challenges are bigger than we thought. We have promoted for a long time getting frequent service to Rockford and to Moline. Illinois has had money to get that project started. And the IDOT department that's responsible for it just hasn't had the funding sources they need to get it over the cliff. So that's one thing that really needs to happen is the legislature needs to appropriate more money for that department. And it's not just for Rockford and Moline, it's for getting a modern metro system as well, where you're not using 50-year-old coaches and 20-year-old locomotives in one of the most important cities in North America. So I think Pritzker's engaged. We need to get more citizen up to support his efforts.
Yeah, Rick,
I think he's.
is this on? Okay. First of all, my husband Wes and I have been members of the High Speed Rail Alliance for 20-plus years, so we really appreciate the work you're doing. And I've been commuting back and forth to Alton, Illinois since 1967, and the improvements, many of which I think you're responsible for, are absolutely admirable. It used to take 6 to 7 hours to get into Chicago. It's a 4.5-hour trip now. It's very smooth. Dining car is gone, but I can live without that. So, but thank you. But we also live near where the One Central development is. Have you weighed in on the hub that they want to build for One Central?
Boy, I would love that proposal to be in a different place. I'm not sure that's the right location for the type of facility that we need. I'm very concerned about the fact that he figured out how to get the payments for the loans on that to be higher than the RTA payments. That's very concerning to me. RTA should be above that development. Yes.
What is the status of the high-speed rail from St. Louis to Chicago? I ride the Heritage Line every day, and I perceive that as a major bottleneck and wonder what's happening on the project.
There is a project that we worked very hard to make happen. And my lobbyist pieced together some people at the last minute to make sure we had state funding to match the federal funding to do that project. There was just a discussion of how that has improved the track quality. It's a much better railroad than it used to be. It's not high-speed rail, but they called it high-speed rail. It's a shared use line. It's an exciting project. They did the middle. They did Alton to St. Louis. Now we need to do St. Louis to Chicago. Amtrak has a proposal out to shift those trains over to the Rock Island. I would like to see it where the trains could use either, depending on what's happening that day. They did go for a federal grant in order to start work on that. They didn't get that federal grant, but we know they're going to go for more. So we need to help support their efforts to get that federal grant to fix that last piece. I think that answers your question. Does it? Yep, thank you.
We do have a small population, or it does beg a question that we have a population that really love their large vehicles. They like to drive. What is your strategy to get them to ditch their cars to get, matriculate to taking the train? Because there's, again, some people love their large cars and they would rather drive.
Yes, everywhere you go in the world, people love their large cars. They are getting better everywhere that people are. There's convenience, there's accessibility, and there's freedom, right, that comes with that. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Having a bunch of people over to drink is not a bad thing on a Friday afternoon. There is a party that's gone out of bounds, and what you do about that party that's gone out of bounds, right? And so the things that we can do right now are get rid of parking minimums. That's the first step. I am concerned about the fact that the SUVs are getting bigger and deadlier, and you can't see a child in a crosswalk if you're driving an F-150. I don't know what to do about that. I think that's totally unacceptable. I don't know why it's acceptable that people are driving those. If you're in the room and you have one, I apologize. But the key is to make the trains much more attractive, to make the buses more attractive. That means more frequency. That means dependability before the market is there. You've got to run the trains and buses first. And it means getting rid of parking minimums so you can make walkable places around the places that people want to go. And we'll get there. We'll definitely get there.
So thank you for being here. This question might be outside of your purview, but something I'm curious about. I'm a regular Red Line rider. CTA is often complaining about being short-staffed in their trains and buses. There was an article in the Tribune today suggesting that the large derailment in Ohio was in part due to low staffing. So I was curious, building all of the infrastructure is interesting, but how will you address potential short staffing problems?
It is a real problem, and they're struggling with that issue at Pace Bus, Metra, CTA. The railroads, again, our federal policies have encouraged the railroads to run longer and longer trains on less and less track, which I think is a very bad policy decision. I don't know the details of that wreck. I know that it was really bad. But I know the FRA is struggling with that. I don't know what the answer is. I'm sorry.
What would be the impact of electric engines in high-speed trains?
So electric motive power is one of those Lego blocks that's almost always a good idea, and you have to, the faster they go, the more you have to do it. So the break point is about 125 miles an hour, where you have to have the train electrified, because there's no way to store the energy on the train to run that fast. And batteries actually make the equation work less than diesel. But they make the trains much more efficient. They make them faster in and out of the stations if they're electrified. So one of the most efficient commuter rail lines into Chicago is the Metro Electric, and it also has its great service because it's electrified. So that's one thing we should be working on as a country is figuring out how to electrify the busiest lines.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We typically have more thank you here.
Excellent. Thank you.
Our coffee makes us happy. Excellent. All right, very good. Wayman, you want to join me up here for our new member induction, please? Thank you. I'll step on the right.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody is enjoying themselves so far. Thanks to our great speaker. It's a great pleasure. I get to introduce our members, our new members. It is my great pleasure on behalf of the Board of Directors and members of the Rotary Club of Chicago to welcome each of you as a member of Rotary One. We welcome you not only for the fine fellowship that we shall share, but also for our talents, abilities, and enthusiasm that will help us to carry out our many projects to make our community, our country, and the world a better place in which to live. Rotary is not a political organization, but all Rotarians are vitally concerned with everything pertaining to good citizenship and the election of good men and women to public office. Rotary is not a charitable organization, yet its activities exemplify the charity and the sacrifices that one should expect from people who believe that they have a responsibility to help others. Rotary is not a religious organization, but it is built on those eternal principles that have served as the moral compass for people throughout the ages. Rotary is an organization of business and professional people pledged to upholding the highest professional standards. Rotarians believe that worldwide fellowship and international peace can be achieved when business people unite under the banner of service. I would like to request for those present to stand for the delivery of the charge that follows. The new members. Thank you. Sorry. Apologies. The new members. Thank you. Okay. Each.
Actually, why don't you guys come up because you might get
right.
a pin afterwards.
All right.
Go ahead. we'll figure this out.
Right. Each of you has been chosen for membership in the Rotary Club of Chicago because your fellow Rotarians believe you to be a leader in your profession and because you manifest the intelligence and commitment of heart that fits you to interpret and impart the message of Rotary. You are a representative of your profession in this club, and any information of an educational value pertaining to that profession must naturally come to us through you. At the same time, you become an ambassador from us to your profession, and we rely on you to carry the principles and ideals of service which we here inspire to those who share your professional activity. The community will know and judge Rotary by your embodiment of it in character and service. And we accept you as a member because we know our principles and organization will be safe in your keeping. We also expect you to give us the inspiration that will help us to become better Rotarians. And it is with this hope that I ask the president of the Rotary Club of Chicago to invest you with the distinguishing pen of a Rotarian and gladly offer you the right hand of Rotary Fellowship.
Am I up?
Yeah, go right ahead.
You know, we're doing the pinning out. I'm gonna want to destroy the fine texture here, but we'll do that in just a second.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Very good. Thank you, sir. We'll take a picture after that, so. Yeah. Real quick. Thank you, Wayman. Man, you're tall. Take a seat for 1 second. We'll take the picture just 1 second. Just want to introduce our guests real quick. Let's start here in the room. Do we have any international guests with us today? I don't think so. How about our friends online? Is there anybody from abroad visiting with us today?
No, I was there a couple of weeks ago. I'm not in Alabama from Argentina. It was a pleasure to with you again online. So.
Well, thank you for joining us. Anybody else out there?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Liz Goggins. I used to attend your meetings very often. I haven't been here for a while. I am from U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, District 7020. Abroad, but not really international, kind of in a way.
Very good. Moving on, if there's no one else, we're moving on to the visiting U.S. Rotarians. And anybody here in the room? I didn't see anybody, but maybe online we have a visiting U.S. Rotarian. Okay, let's move on to recognizing our guests, the guests of Rotary. I know that our beloved past president, Mr. Eric, has the audacity of inviting 3 guests and then chose to not show up. And I just want to say, he's not getting any points for that. Okay? On the other hand, if my team makes a donation, then we get the points. Is that a fair deal? All right, then let's have a bidding contest. We can have a bidding contest. I get the 3 points, $50, outbid me. The minimum is 75. Go ahead, outbid me. All right. Anyway, our guests here, stand up. Just say real quick your name.
I've been friend of Eric's for many years, and I worked with him on a lot of passenger rail issues, and also with Rick.
Great.
Hi, I'm Annette Bell. I'm a new member to the league. I met Eric recently, and
All right. Anywhere else? I think that's. Oh, yeah. Great. Any guests online? All right. Maybe not. You know, Chuck, surprise attack on you. We're concluding our meeting with our four-way test. I'll give you the microphone so you can help out. So please rise.
Thank you. Okay, I guess everyone stand, please, to read our four-way test. It's up here on the board. Four-way test of things we think, say, and do. Number one, is it true? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendship? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Fifth.
Have a good time.
All right.
It'll be fun.
Thank you. Take your seats one more time. Our new inductees, if I can have you up here for 1 second, please. Most of you all know you, but maybe you'll share with the rest of the members who you are, where you're from. 1 minute, the elevator pitch real fast.
Lynn Ostfeld from Chicago, and I went to the first Rotary-sponsored Taste of Chicago on Michigan Avenue.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby Marie Edwards. I bring you greetings from Charlottesville, Virginia. Yes, where the Tiki Torch Rally was. We can talk about that another time. I have my master's from the University of Chicago. I have the pleasure of being the director of leadership giving with Children's Home and Aid. And before this position, I worked as an executive director of a nonprofit that focused on low-income housing advocacy. What's up?
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Hanlon. I'm so excited to be a member. So thank you, everyone, for being so welcoming. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm a proud mom of 2 boys, and I'm the executive director of Project Cure. We're the world's largest distributor of donated medical equipment and supplies to over 135 countries across the globe. And I'm very proud that my warehouse here in Chicago is preparing an air freight shipment to Turkey currently that will go out this weekend.
Well, thanks, everybody. And with that, I think we can conclude our meeting. Thank you to everybody online, for everybody here in person. Have a great afternoon.